Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're going to go ahead and call our meeting back to order with a roll call from our city clerk, Kathy Valdez.
The record should reflect that all members are present with the exception of Deputy Mayor O'Donnell.
Our city attorney, Walter Chung, will bring us out of closed session.
In closed session today, the City Council voted 4-0 with Deputy Mayor O'Donnell absent to purchase 952-958 Postal Way from Escondido Ventures LLC for $13.125 million.
And Councilmember Melendez will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening.
Please rise. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our city clerk has some procedural items to cover.
Thank you, Mayor. In accordance with the Brown Act, I'd like to announce as a result of convening simultaneous meetings, the members of the Buena Sanitation District will receive compensation of $147.75 for the district meeting pursuant to Buena Sanitation District Ordinance 2006-1. I would like to remind everyone that the Vista Municipal Code requires members of the public to observe order and decorum at the meeting and to conduct themselves in a courteous manner. The ordinance was adopted to allow for public input and to facilitate city business without disruption of the meeting. Applause is appropriate for items listed under the presentation portion of the agenda only. Students wishing to receive credit for attending this evening's meeting must stay for a minimum of 1 hour. However, we ask that you stay for the duration of an item rather than leaving in the middle of a discussion. When you are ready to leave, you may ask one of the staff members at the back of the room to sign your paper. Thank you.
Thank you. To speak on an item on tonight's agenda, please fill out a speaker slip with the number of the item you'd like to speak on. Give it to the clerk, secretary, staff here at the dais. Speaker slips are available on the table just outside the council chamber doors. For members of the public participating via Zoom, you may use the raise your hand feature to indicate you'd like to speak or press *9 on your phone. We will announce when to raise your hand to indicate you'd like to make a comment on the specific item being discussed. Speakers will each have 3 minutes. Now we'll go to our city manager for approval of tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. We will be removing discussion item 1, which is a wayfinding signage program proposal for tasting rooms. We will likely revisit that at a later date.
Okay, very good. Yes.
I just wanted to ask a quick question. If we are able, if you would be amendable to moving D4 to the first discussion item. We have students and wouldn't want them to stay too late.
Sure, that's fine with me.
Thank you.
Okay, any member of the public may address the city council on agency-related matters that are not on the agenda by requesting to speak during this section of the agenda. If you are participating via Zoom, you may use the raise your hand feature or press *9 now if you'd like to speak. The number of speakers heard during this segment is limited to 10. Any remaining speakers will be heard under the second oral communications item. Do we have any requests to be heard under oral communications? Okay, looks like we have 2 speakers here in the chambers. We'll hear first from Debbie Yates and then from Michael Pauleski. And if you heard your name called, please come forward, sit in the front row, and be ready to speak when your name is called. Is Debbie Yates available? Yes. And Mr. Pauleski, if you'd please come forward and grab a seat in the front row. You can come right here to the podium and just pull that microphone right towards you and speak right into it.
Thank you. I want to say
Close to your mouth as possible on that microphone.
Yeah, you bet.
There you go. Now we can hear you nice and clear.
Okay, thank you for hearing me out. I appreciate every one of you. I came today, I'd like to share my viewpoint and give voice to a common concern that's shared among other Vistans regarding the logo branding project. The poll with the choice of 3 designs. I'm seeing very little resonance and a disconnect between our community's identity and the designs that are presented to represent our city. I believe that civic engagement should be encouraged and not sidelined or suppressed. At its core, the message that we want to bring is we'd like to have the 1980s look, the curvy vista. This vision reflects our winding roads and our rolling hills. It symbolizes a community that's fully grown, organic, and alive. It ties into our Rancho history, our mission, close mission history, and our Spanish and Mexican influences. We don't want a design that treats Vista as a data point, a market segment, a generic consumer target. We are people, we are community, not numbers. Vista has long been a community defined by love, kindness, and mutual respect. We value our distinctiveness, and we don't want to resemble every other city or business. A logo is not just a graphic, it expresses the soul of a city. Vista's soul is rooted in a strong and accomplished past, lived out today through healthy daily life and creative pursuits, and carried forward with hope and intention for the next 100 years. The logo options recently presented do not reflect those values. We are one Vista. We, as Vistans, don't define ourselves by districts or live as if, I'm sorry, hang on. We don't feel that we are divided from our neighbors in any way. Districts exist solely as an administrative tool to better serve the whole. After more than 150 years of unity and cooperation and shared histories, we're deeply interconnected. We're connected through family, business, culture, and common purpose. We support one another, and we stand together. Because of this shared understanding, we recognize when something is kind of being pushed through that does.
Thank you so much. Mr. Michael Pileski.
Do any of you know that there's a survey?
I apologize, but our rules of decorum request that you face us and speak into the microphone.
Hello, audience. Can you raise your hands if you know that there is a survey about the new logo for Vista, if anyone knows about it prior to tonight? Thank you. Now, the logo had started in 2024, I believe, from Jamie Muehlhausen posted on his Instagram. Then on his blog, it says, to the right person, got the idea. And then it proceeded it somehow very quickly within 1 month to the competition. I don't recall seeing on social media that it was there. Currently, the logo survey, I don't see it posted on our social media on Instagram or Facebook. I only was aware of it from Channel 10 and KUSI News bringing this up. And then the survey that had been done had only 104 people comment in it for the colors and 101 for the ideas. I don't see the ideas fully represented in these designs. None of the ideas were for 4 bands representing 4 districts. This logo, I don't really care for it. I feel it can look like Visa sometimes. And Pepsi is what a lot of people have said. I've tried to let people know about the survey on Instagram and Facebook. I've been trying to get the word out. I went and sat in front of the Vista Village Pub and tried to let people know. Not many people like the newer design. This design, I feel, is an insult. It looks nothing like our mountains, and we don't have the ocean. Even the person who made the design said that people shouldn't really vote for that one because they didn't think it was like, I don't want to see a mistake like Paseo Santa Fe again, where a few people decided it, then people, when they finally saw it, were upset. I like the old logo. The current one is fine. I never really had much of a problem with it. It wasn't such a drastic change. But I feel these are too much, and I wish the city would encourage people through social media that I have not seen to participate in the survey. And I thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to go to Zoom. We'll hear from Becky Rapp, followed by Madison.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Becky Rapp. I'm a local parent concerned for the health and safety of our young people today, especially as they're bombarded with misinformation regarding drug use, especially marijuana. Recently, the New York Times published an editorial titled, "It's Time for America to Admit that It Has a Marijuana Problem." National publications like the New York Times are recognizing that marijuana is not what the industry has told us, but that there are serious public health concerns that have evolved since they've been permitted. Consumers were promised transparency and guardrails, but many consumers have no idea how potent these products are. And young adults are being exposed to levels of THC that research links to higher risks of psychosis, anxiety, and long-term psychiatric harm. Here in Vista, we cannot ignore the significant problem many residents are facing as they struggle with addiction, overdose, behavioral health crisis, impaired driving, and homelessness tied to substance use. So we have to ask ourselves, are we trying to mitigate our drug problem, or are we fueling it? If we're serious about prevention, then we must be serious about guardrails, potency caps, meaningful warning labels, youth prevention funding, and enforcement against marketing that normalizes use. The city should take a serious look at how to implement these guardrails to better our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from Madison.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Just last week, the Public Health Institute announced findings from a major longitudinal study published in JAMA Health Forum. The study followed over 460,000 adolescents and young adults. It found that teens who reported past year cannabis use had double the risk of developing psychotic disorders and double the risk of developing bipolar disorder in young adulthood. They also face significantly higher risks of depression and anxiety. Importantly, in the study, the cannabis use came first. On average, use preceded psychiatric diagnoses by nearly 2 years. This strengthens the evidence that adolescent cannabis exposure is not just correlated with, but may contribute to serious mental illness. Adolescent cannabis use remains common. The risks are rising while the perception of harm is falling. The study also found higher rates of cannabis use among youth enrolled in Medicaid and those living in more socioeconomically deprived neighborhoods. That means commercialization may be widening mental health disparities, something our city cannot ignore. I urge the City Council to strengthen local restrictions on youth-targeted cannabis marketing, require clear, prominent warnings about high-potency THC products, and pay attention to the dangerous public messaging seen on billboards and storefronts. The mental health of our young people is worth fighting for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That'll close the opportunity for public comment at this meeting. Now we'll next move on to our consent calendar. The recommendations on the following consent calendar will be enacted in one motion unless an item is removed from the calendar. Any member of the public may remove an item by submitting a request to speak card to the clerk's secretary here at the dais by using the raise their hand feature on Zoom or by pressing *9. Items removed from the consent calendar will be considered immediately following the adoption of the calendar. We have 7 consent items this evening. Councilmember Fox.
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second your motion. We have a motion and a second. Seeing no request to speak, please cast your votes. That motion is approved unanimously with Councilmember O'Donnell absent. That will bring us to our public hearing this evening. We have one public hearing regarding the Central Vista Business Improvement District annual levy. The public hearing is now open. If any members of the public wish to speak on this item, they may indicate so by using the raise your hand feature by pressing *9 or submitting a request to speak card here at the dais. Speakers will be called upon after the presentation. Our Assistant City Manager, Imelda Huerta, will provide the staff report.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Imelda Huerta, Assistant City Manager, and with me tonight is TJ Crossman, the CVBID Advisory Board Chair. As a background, on January 27, 2026, the City Council approved the Central Vista Business Improvement District, or CVBID, annual report for fiscal year 26-27 and adopted a resolution declaring the city's intent to levy assessments for the CVBID. By law, this public hearing has been properly noticed, in addition to mailings to businesses within the district and scheduled for the consideration of the proposed assessments, which represent no fee increases or boundary changes for the upcoming fiscal year. At this public hearing, the City Council will consider all protests against the assessments. If protests from business owners within the district are 50% or more of the proposed assessments are received, then no further proceedings for the levy of assessments will be taken for a period of 1 year. If no majority protest exists, the levy of the proposed assessment may be approved through the adoption of the resolution of confirmation. The CVBID is a funding mechanism which nets approximately $50,000 per year. The CVBID Advisory Board oversees these funds, and city staff administers the funds. If the City Council approves the resolution, staff will move forward with using the CVBID grant program to distribute the funds. And now it's my pleasure to introduce TJ Crossman, who will provide a report on the upcoming fiscal year levy as well as events.
Good evening, Mayor Franklin and members of the City Council. Thanks for all that you all do. I really appreciate it. I'm TJ Crossman, Chair of the CVBID Advisory Board. The Advisory Board is recommending that the boundaries and assessments of the Central Vista Business Improvement District remain the same for the fiscal year 26-27. Last fiscal year, CVBID revenues were used to host 4 events in downtown Vista: the annual Rod Run, Fright Night, Cowboy Christmas, and Dark Christmas. All events were well attended and successful. The Vista Art Foundation has announced that Dark Christmas will be placed on a hiatus this year for research and development, as well as to explore opportunities for an expanded venue in 2027. This event is going to return larger and enhanced in 2027. I know I just said that, but this year we are planning to grow attendance at these events, bring additional events to Vista. We are particularly excited for the new K-pop Anime Fest on Saturday, March 7th, which is expected to attract a diverse demographic. And I want to give a huge shout out to Faye Gray. She helped make this, helped us expand this event already, and she's just an amazing person. And thank you, Faye, if you're hearing this. Over the last 12 months, we have significantly improved our communication with business owners to keep them informed of how their assessments are being spent. We remain committed to developing initiatives to activate the Avo Playhouse, growing our community artisan market, and supporting events that bring more people to the downtown and encourage them to visit downtown businesses. Thank you for your continued support for the Downtown Vista.
Again, we'd like to thank the City Council for their support as well. And this concludes our report. We're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank TJ Crossman for his service as chair of the advisory board and all of your volunteerism to the city and all the good things you do in our community. Good to see you. We have one public speaker, Monica Shelhoop. Okay. All right. Very good. And Councilmember Contreras.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you to our CVBID board and all our downtown business owners. You know, it's been great to see the events downtown continue to grow. So with that, I would just like to make a motion to close this public hearing and receive the testimony. Thank you.
Councilmember Melendez.
Thank you for those updates. We love our downtown. Growing up in Vista, it's been so amazing to see how the community has come together with more and more diverse events. I think that that's such a special part of what we offer, is a little bit of something for everyone that people can really enjoy, and really appreciate your work on that. And of course, I'll want to second that motion and conclude that business and encourage you to keep doing that great work. Thank you.
Councilmember Fox.
I also just wanted to echo the gratitude to the CVBID for all the hard work that they do. You know, the energy that they put behind a lot of these events. I mean, I can see from even the events like the K-pop Anime Fest that, you know, I'm sure a lot of people on the board didn't necessarily understand at first. And, you know, that them hopping behind it was a really cool thing to see. So I really appreciate, again, all your hard work and all that you do for our downtown and bringing people there to support our local businesses. So thank you so much.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. That item is approved unanimously with Councilmember O'Donnell absent. Thank you again. Okay, looks like we have 3 remaining discussion items, so we'll go to item D2. D1 has been removed from the agenda. Oh, I'm sorry, we're going to take D4 first. Thank you very much. This item is regarding a letter of support for student transportation options to Mission Vista High School. If any members of the public wish to speak on this item, they may indicate so by using the raise their hand feature by pressing *9 or submitting a request to speak card. Speakers will be called upon after the presentation. Councilmember Contreras asked for the item to be on the agenda, so we'll ask her to introduce it.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Mayor, for moving this up. I want to pass it over. I think we have some students that are going to be leading the presentation. And you all can introduce yourselves as well.
Press that red button on the desk in front of you. There you go.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. My name is Eden Cohen.
Hi, I'm Matt Steikstra. We've been working on this little transportation project for a little while now. It's kind of Eden's child. Eden is a student that goes to Mission Vista, and she noticed something really serious at her school, that people could not get to Mission Vista on time through public transportation. She came to Joaquin and I at the Youth Commission, and we have been working on this for a couple months now, and we are asking for your letter of support, and it would really mean a lot to us. So getting into it. First off, the question. This is what really inspired Eden and the rest of us to start working on this. And that is, how does inaccessible public transport affect student outcomes? What is the impact really on attendance, academic performance, social and emotional health of students because of public transportation? So why the question? First of all, the scale. We noticed already as students that this was a problem, and so Eden quantified it for us. 43% of VUSD students come from economically challenged families. That's a really big number. Oceanside's housing expenses are 82% higher than the national average, and transportation expenses are 42% higher. Our community is experiencing a huge cost of living crisis and boom. And coupled with 20% of low-income families not being able to own vehicles, and 60% of student low-income families primarily riding the bus is a big deal. The North County Transit District is a lifeline for a lot of us students. And just in VUSD alone, 17% of students take the bus. The national average of students who takes the bus is 33%, meaning that VUSD students are half as likely to take the bus, even though 60% of student low-income families ride the bus, 20% have no vehicles, and our community is already suffering under this cost of living crisis. Number 2, equity. OUSD, Oceanside Unified School District, has 5 bus routes that make 2 to 3 stops at Ocean High School, and VUSD has 3 one-track bus routes to Mission Vista High School. So even though that Mission Vista does have bus routes, there's still an equity problem. And Mission Vista is, as you know, a very good school. So this lack of transportation has prevented a lot of students from attending, furthering the wealth education gap. You really need a car to get to Mission Vista. And for all the families in our community who do not own a car, this is a huge barrier to overcome. So what are our goals with this? First of all, we just want to raise awareness of this issue to you all and to the rest of the community. We want to quantify the effect that this inaccessible transportation has had on students, and to further this conversation of equity that we think is really important. But also is a real pragmatic policy change. We're working with VUSD and NCTD to increase public transportation to schools. And we really need your guys' help with this. But I will let my partners take it along, and Joaquin will actually take my place.
Thank you so much. So for my methodology, we issued surveys and I received 97 responses. It is a 5 to 10 minute anonymous survey to gauge data on demographics, so wealth and race, as well as academic performance measured by GPA, attendance and participation, and social and emotional health. To measure social and emotional health, I specifically used the Perceived Stress Scale, which is a well-reputable and renowned psychological measuring tool of stress. And for qualitative data, we wanted to contextualize the struggles represented from the survey. So Sabrina Neal, who unfortunately couldn't make it tonight, but her and I worked to interview a lot of students who had these struggles. But we also didn't just leave it at the students directly affected. We looked at students with positive experiences at Mission Vista. And what we found is, which Joaquin will get into a lot later, but we found that a lot of these students who had an easier time at Mission Vista and increased GPA were actually living very close to the school, had a car, and were at a higher position of wealth, which led to their positive experience. Then to incentivize responses, I included an opportunity to win a $20 gift card to Target upon completion of the survey. And to spread the word, I advertised flyers and encouraged members of Justice to reach out. So my findings were that 89% of students who are lower income, 70% of students who are middle income, and 69% of students who are upper middle income all reported that transportation made getting to school more difficult. On average, lower to lower middle income students reported a GPA of 0.25 below the average of the survey. On average, middle to upper income students reported a GPA of 0.27 above the average of the survey. And on average, non-white students were 10% more likely to report transportation has made getting to school more difficult. For attendance and participation findings, we found that of the 74% of students who reported that transportation made getting to school more difficult, about 39% of them had reported transportation barriers often or sometimes caused them to miss out on extracurricular activities and sports. These activities are a huge part of Mission Vista. It's also one of the things that allows people to receive extra help with schoolwork, with PAC tutoring, and when these variables compound on top of each other, it makes it very difficult to continue to strive to do your best in high school. 38% of students who answered yes also reported that transportation barriers have caused them to be late or miss school entirely. So it's not just extracurriculars and getting extra help when you need to that has already been a challenge, but it's actually getting to school that students are still being directly affected by. For social and emotional health findings, of the students who answered yes, that transportation made getting to school more difficult, they had, on average, a 7% higher cumulative stress score. The students who answered no, that they didn't report difficulties getting to school, by transportation, saw a reduction of stress by 25%. For academic performance, students who answered that transportation made getting to school more difficult for them reported lower GPAs on average by 0.051, and students who answered no were reported higher GPAs on average by 0.51. And then I'm going to let Joaquin take over for the student voice part. Thank you.
Thank you. So these are the student voices that have shared their own experiences of dealing with transportation, along with a either positive or negative effect depending on their current situation. So for instance, like in Marilyn's situation, who's living 20 minutes away and is usually parent dependent, which she says, quote, "Not knowing what time I am able to get home every day can be stressful because I want to know when I get home so I can manage my time properly," end quote. Other people have even worse outcomes than just being 20 minutes away. For instance, we have Belle, who lives 11 miles away and relied on friends and freshmen, on like friends who were freshmen or sophomore years, saying, quote, "With consistent transportation, I think it would have relieved some of my stress and given me more time to focus on my studies," quote. and or Tenera, who lives 40 to 60 minutes away, who comes to MVHS for its academics, we have, quote, "We have a very limited time schedule that I have to work with, especially if I want tutoring like Tuesdays and Thursdays, which they give tutoring on those days after school. I would wake up around 5 to 5:30 a.m. to get up and get ready, clean a little bit, and try to prepare some food for dinner and then go to school," end quote. She later told us that she only gets 5 hours of sleep per night, half of the recommended, which is 10 hours for teenagers, which come from Johns Hopkins medical institutions. And then we have the student driver with stable transportation, Izzy, who says, quote, I think driving myself has affected my GPA in a positive way because I've never had to worry about transportation barriers. I get home quicker, I have more time to study, and I have less distractions," end quote. In conclusion, transportation challenges at Mission Vista are limiting access to education, athletics, and clubs, increasing stress and sleep deprivation, as well as disproportionately affecting lower income and working families, and impacting student well-being, equity, and academic opportunity. While transportation disproportionately affects certain demographics, it still affects everyone. By investing into inclusive, better transportation, you would be investing in the time and the academic success, reduce stress, and increased attendance of all students, which will help the school tremendously. And now I'll pass on to you.
So for our proposal, we overlaid residency data and income distribution maps. And we came up with expanding the 303 and the 315 bus line. The purple is what they currently run, as well as the blue for the 303, and the pink is what we suggest to add on to it. So the primary bus line we would be looking at is the 303. While we already have school buses, like shuttle buses, that go from Mission Vista to those 3 pinpointed locations I put towards Vista, it doesn't expand anywhere east, which is still a lot of students as we overlaid the residency map. And you would still, since it's a shuttle bus, it would require being dropped off at those specific locations or living in a short walking distance. Furthermore, if we expand east to these students and as well as kind of southeast, that would give a lot more, that would bring it, the opportunity to attend Mission Vista to a lot more students and keep public schools the way they're meant to be, as a place where education can be equalized in all classes and regardless of where they live, can attend a school. We're trying to expand the 303 to go to Mission Vista down there and the 315. We have met with NCTD and brought up our proposal, to which they requested more demographic data. So Dr. Doyle is currently setting up a meeting with Rep. Levin to learn more. And I also, where the Student Equity Initiative also has a meeting with Dr. Doyle to discuss getting more demographic data to bring to them. So for funding for this project, we met with Representative Levin, and we found out, Representative Levin's constituency manager, and we found out that the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Fund expires September of 2026. It was a block grant with $108 billion approved, and VUSD can request funds through Transportation Alternative Funds, which is TAP, and we presented to NCD, and we are currently waiting to hear back on I'm so sorry, it doesn't have the other slide, but we are currently waiting to hear back from them on the price estimate. But we wanted to also come to you today with questions. So we would be asking if you would be willing to support this initiative, either through a letter of recommendation or by being able to meet with NCTD and VUSD board. We also wanted to ask if any of you guys have suggestions for a better way to fund this or a better way to go about this important issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the great presentation. We'll hear from Councilmember Melendez first.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, students, for sharing such thoughtful findings with us. This is fantastic. We might be able to, ask our friends and neighbors what their thoughts are on transportation. But when you put it forward in this manner, where you're doing a scientific study, that really helps us to understand the scope of the problem. And what really stands out to me is how student academic success is impacted by a lack of transportation. So, one of the things that we see kind of in our community is something called the curb cut effect. Have you guys ever heard of that? So for those who don't know, you might be on a sidewalk or at a crossing, and you'll notice that the curb is cut down and it'll slope, right, like a ramp. So those were originally designed for people in wheelchairs, right, or people with disabilities. But we know that a curb cut doesn't just improve the travel for someone in a wheelchair. It's also great for strollers, delivery drivers, and anyone who might need to use that type of slope. So the same can be said in a lot of areas, whether that's audiobooks or transportation. When we are able to design services and our infrastructure systems to accommodate folks that have disadvantages, it actually can benefit a lot more people in return. So not only do I want to support the students that are having a difficult time getting access to their classes, but I also think that it could benefit a lot more people in the long run. So I think y'all have not just put forward a great argument for why we should support greater access to buses in particular, but also you're exploring how are we going to fund these services. So I would absolutely be supportive of joining in on a letter to advocate for funding at all levels of government. And knowing that the school district is involved and North County Transit District is involved, that creates a lot of strength to move a project like this forward. I think it would be great for us to connect with our city staff and understand, right, what the city's role in this type of project could be. I know we have Councilmember Karina Contreras, who's our representative on North County Transit District. So I just want to say great job for this presentation. You're really highlighting a very important topic. And I'm available to you as a council member to advocate with you, attend any meetings where you're going and looking for support from the council. And then, of course, just thank you for being here. And I want all the other students to see, continue to apply your studies in everything that you're passionate about, because you can come before your government and appeal to them and ask them for support. And I absolutely do support you. So thank you for being here.
Councilmember Contreras.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much, Eden, Mattson, Joaquin, and Sabrina, who is not able to join us today. But it's the level of data collection, of framing this issue, looking at the different aspects that are necessary to overcome, right? Funding being a big one. I really appreciate all the hard work that goes into it and where your passion and your North Star is, right? Which is ensuring that students have the most equitable experience possible, which is just critical, right? And so thank you so much. I've never seen a report like this before, and I'm glad that we were able to bring it forward to the council. I would say I'm hearing that you need a letter of support from the council, and that letter of support should go to Vista Unified School District and North County Transit District. I would say that it goes to those organizations as well as the board of those organizations, right? Is that something that we're able to do? Fantastic. And I do want to highlight something that Councilmember Melendez said, which is, in addition, the funding request. And I do believe that we could also put a letter of support together to our different levels of government, the county, the state and federal government, and those representatives that are within the respective districts, right, of the area that we're talking about, as a letter of support as well. Is that something that we're able to do too? Okay, fantastic. So I would move forward that we submit a letter of support to Vista Unified School District, North County Transit District, to the organization and the board, and that we submit a letter of support for funding at the county, the state, and the federal government level. And, there's also an additional regional body that we haven't discussed. I think that we add SANDAG to that as well, because they play a role as the metropolitan organization, planning organization for this region. It would be important to bring them into the mix as well. And you have my complete support and advocacy for any meeting that you want to have with North County Transit District, Vista Unified School District. It sounds like, the council members themselves want to support you in that. So just let us know. And I can talk to you offline as to how you let, the entire council know. But this is incredible. Thank you again so much. And again, to the other students and folks, that if you do have other issues that you want to review, you can just ask your council member. That's what these folks did. They came and they asked me to review this with them. And I thought it would be a great opportunity to bring this to the council for some more education, information, and to support you all. So thank you again. And that's it.
Councilmember Fox.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to compliment a great presentation. I think that was very professional and, in line with anything else that we, receive on a regular basis. So very good job on that. I had questions, but then my counsel answered a lot of them for me. So I'll just take this opportunity to second the motion. Thank you.
Very good, and I would second all those comments. You did a great job with your presentation and your research, and thank you very much for identifying this important issue and bringing it forward for our attention, and we look forward to helping you in your quest as you move forward here. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Okay, that item is approved unanimously with Deputy Mayor O'Donnell absent. Thank you again. Okay. Now we'll circle back to item D2. Discussion item regarding accessible pedestrian signals. If any member of the public wishes to speak on this item, they may indicate so by using the raise their hand feature, pressing *9, or submitting a request to speak card here at the dais. Speakers will be called upon after the presentation. Looks like our Traffic Engineering Division Manager, Sam Hassan, will provide the report tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So the background on this item, in September 2025, the Senior Citizens Affairs Commission made a recommendation to the City Council to consider the implementation of improvements to pedestrian traffic signals, which include accessible pedestrian signals, and those are the push buttons for pedestrians that are accessible to blind persons by providing audible messages with brailles with information on where and when to cross the street. Also lead pedestrian intervals, and what that does is it provides a green indication to pedestrians about 3 to 10 seconds before the vehicle movement, which reduces potential conflict, and also countdown pedestrian signal indications, and those are indications that show the amount of time remaining for pedestrians to cross the street. So it happens that we have completed some improvements at 7 intersections to upgrade the existing pedestrian push buttons to accessible pedestrian signals, and those are Civic Center Drive and South Santa Fe Avenue, South Santa Fe Avenue and Postal Way, East Vista Way and Vista Village Drive / Civic Center Drive, East Vista Way and Anza Avenue / Vail Terrace Drive, North Santa Fe Avenue and Beaubier Drive, Vista Village Drive and Palm Drive / Main Street, and Vista Village Drive and Citrus Avenue. So some details on the LPI, or lead pedestrian interval, and the change that requires is the signal timing changes, which introduces that 3 to 10 second lead pedestrian interval. This may impact traffic flow, especially on the Main Street approaches of an intersection, As an example, and kind of a rough calculation, if we take the intersection of East Vista Way and Anza Avenue, and we assume a 5-second LPI in all 4 corners, that could result in about 300 vehicles per hour of residual queuing during the PM peak on East Vista Way. Countdown pedestrian indications exist at some intersections in the city. And to know exactly where we have all our countdown pedestrian indications and EPS, we would need a citywide assessment to inventory the traffic signals and find where those are. We reached out to one of our as-needed consultants, and they gave us an estimated cost for the assessment of about $1,000 per intersection. And as recommendation from staff is to begin an assessment on high pedestrian volume intersections, and that includes the southern portion of East Vista Way, Civic Center Drive, North Santa Fe Avenue, and the northern portions of South Melrose Drive and Sycamore Avenue. And that's approximately 30 traffic signals at about a cost of about $30,000 for the assessment. A general cost for APS and countdown indications from a recent experience would vary from $15,000 to $40,000 per signalized intersection, depending on the conditions. So the staff recommendation tonight is to receive information on accessible pedestrian signals in the city and provide direction to staff. Thank you.
Councilmember Contreras.
Thank you so much. It's just a quick question. I remember from a discussion that we had when we were looking at the giant report that we got for Safe Streets for All, something like that. That LPI had a like 60% reduction in crashes. And I understand, that we currently don't really have an LPI system, right, that we're employing. But it's such a significant reduction in serious injuries and fatalities and pedestrian safety and motorist safety that I really would want to study that a little bit more, potentially. And what does that look like? What would it look like for us to say, hey, staff, we really want to study this and just kind of walk through what an implementation plan would look like?
It could be just direction from council tonight, and I think we should probably focus on maybe in high pedestrian volume corridors, maybe start with like 5 locations and just kind of look at the specifics. And I believe I did some research on the kind of effectiveness of LPIs. The research is still scant because they haven't been around too long. Mm-hmm. So I think it's highly location dependent on the effectiveness. And there are 2 ways to implement them too. There's the simple, just signal time in, introduce maybe 5 seconds of the lead pedestrian interval. But there's also more elaborate installations where you combine that with the extinguishable message signs, where you have a no turn on red sign that comes up. Obviously, that involves more substantial cost versus just staff time to do the timing. This would require the hardware and the wiring. That is, I believe, more effective because that also gives a message to the right turn-in vehicles that during that 5-second or 10-second lead pedestrian interval that they cannot make a turn on red as well. So there's 2, but we can start obviously with just a time and maybe look at maybe 5 or 10 intersections at the direction of the council.
Okay, yeah, I think it's really important for us. I understand that there isn't a significant presence of LPI, leading pedestrian intervals, where we're getting a lot of data, right, to be able to say for certain that this is, the conclusion is that this is much safer. But from the data that we are receiving, it seems that eventually, if we had more of these, we would get that outcome of showing significant safety. So I think it is important. I would, want to take a look at the most dense, like high pedestrian used intersections. I think just in general, for the council to even have that information, I think is important because there's a myriad of different traffic calming treatments potentially in the future. But taking a look at, the top 5, that would be great. And then I think just maybe like a surface level, high level investigation, information finding on signal timing changes, and then what you said, this higher level of device, which is the no turning on red, which we don't have on every single intersection, but I'd be curious just to see kind of like what the costs would be. Now, in this assessment, when do we get data on like the delay time and that kind of stuff? Would that come kind of later on?
So there's 2 ways to do that. Obviously, there's just our, knowledge and observations of the existing conditions, traffic flow, and then observations after implementation, or we can do modeling using software of the current conditions. And after, we should probably do both. If it's just 5 locations, it's something we can just model.
Okay. And do we currently have that modeling software, or is that a contractual thing that we have to?
Yes, we have it, and staff is capable of doing that. Yes.
Fantastic. Yeah, so I would love to see that. And then when it comes to, let's see, to the audio, that's the APS, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I really appreciate looking at the different locations. I for certain would love to replace any of the APS that's, outdated. So these are locations where there is APS, but it's not modern, or if you could just clarify for me.
Yeah, so this is kind of going to be a 2-stage process. So we don't have exact information where all the current, up-to-date APS installations exist. So we're proposing an assessment first by one of our consultants to go out to every intersection and assess whether they are APS or not, bring us back the data. So we're recommending at the beginning maybe just to start with kind of the high pedestrian volume corridors that I mentioned.
Okay.
Sorry.
What's the process to assess whether they have APS or not?
It's just going out and pushing every button.
Because I mean, how much is this going to cost us? Because I would happily go to all 110 intersections. I'll walk, bike, and take public transit and drive to do that.
So yeah, their estimate is about $1,000 per intersection, but it's also a little bit beyond that because we want to know what the type of equipment is, because it could be a simpler upgrade rather than a complete replacement. Plus, we want them to look at the wiring. That's a big thing that we found from the 7 locations we're working on. The existing wiring could make a difference too in the cost.
So I'm not qualified to do that. If it's just to press a button, I'm definitely qualified to do that.
That's part of it.
But beyond that, I think we probably would need some additional help. Is there, could the information that we receive from the consultant, could that be tied to anything else? Could we utilize that for anything beyond APS?
Unfortunately, no, that's just it.
Okay, it's just for that.
And they'll also look for the countdown pedestrian indications to see if those exist or not, and that's just visual.
Okay. Yeah, so and we have how many intersections again? I know we had 110, we like grew them.
About 100, yeah, we're at 113 now. We installed a couple of pedestrian signals and another one, so we're at 113.
You know, I think that it would be good to assess all of them, but we don't have to do them all at once. I think this is like a multi-year plan. Maybe we start with even understanding the high pedestrian usage intersections, and then maybe, start with those intersections first, and then just kind of take it from there. But I do think that we need to do it. I just don't think that the cost of doing it all right now is like super necessary. So that's kind of where I'm at, but I wish that we could just do it all, but I mean, that's a lot of consultant money. Okay, I gotta think about that one a little bit more. But outside of that, I think, we do the assessments, both on LPI and APS, and then this information would come back to the council and we would have just some more information so that we could have a additional robust discussion on it. But that would be my direction, and I would love to hear from the rest of my council. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Fox.
Perfect. So thank you again for the presentation, all the work on this. You mentioned phase 1 is an assessment of the current APS inventory, and I'm assuming phase 2 then is to then prioritize which ones we would actually want to install?
Yeah, so we would come back with the assessment results and receive direction, maybe in potentially the multi-year plan.
Okay. And so phase 1 would probably not be the time to look at LPI. That would be a phase 2 when we're doing the assessments of when we're looking at each signal's priority in that, we could potentially include an LPI discussion in that phase?
LPI could be just a separate thing that we would do the assessment. If that's the direction from council, then maybe, like Councilmember Contreras suggested, maybe 5 top high pedestrian volume intersections just to look at LPI, just for timing changes.
Yeah, and the only reason I bring that up is because, obviously if we're looking at one thing, if it's cheaper to look at both at the same time, and if there's a consultant already looking, at an intersection to try to combine that. And then the other piece of it is, I know a lot of this came from, our senior commission and specifically looking to make increased accessibility. So on top of just the high traffic intersections, pedestrian traffic intersections, would we be able to assess for things like, I think the example that was brought up is there's a school for the blind, that we might want to have some leading or some APS at signals near that or something like that. Would we be able to take that into consideration for prioritizing?
We can, yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think that's really important. I think when it comes time for the LPI, I think it'd be nice to kind of know the levels of service and traffic impacts and things like that along the same route. If it's not somewhere where it's a highly dangerous intersection, but it's highly trafficked with cars, all that would be good to have that information at the same time. But until we get to that conversation, I could see that no rush on that one. So, okay. Well, no, that sounds like a plan to me. I think. Do you think 5 or 10 signals, we would be picking those internally of which ones for them to assess and take inventory on? Is that or how's that? Because that seems like,
I would recommend you maybe starting with 5 and then staff can just look at basically the biggest conflict. Obviously, we're going to be looking at, first is the number of pedestrians crossing, which we have those counts already. We have existing counts, as well as right turn-in vehicles. That's the biggest, conflict. We can just, maybe at the staff, if council is okay with it, at the staff level, just pick the top 5.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's reasonable, and then I see no reason why we couldn't go from there. Cool. All right, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Contreras again?
Yeah, and I just wanted to also mention, I'm curious if there are any signals that we can include that are kind of fit the category of high pedestrian counts, right-hand turns, and also safe routes to school. Because I'm thinking of, just like Civic Center here with Vista Magnet Middle School. So I think it would be good to kind of add that element of safe routes to school. And then I think the Center for the Blind, I want to say that the closest intersection is the Vista Way in Beau Beer. So it's kind of a distance away, but that is a really important intersection too, to ensure that people can safely cross, because it's a pretty wide intersection. But I just wanted to lend an overlap, kind of like an overlay of safe routes to school on top of the high pedestrian counts and right-hand turn counts as well. Thank you so much. Do you all have enough direction, or are you looking for a motion?
Yeah, I think we do, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
And the company that we're working with right now for most of our signals, so we haven't got a firm cost estimate from them.
So yeah, this is one of our as-needed engineering consultants to do the assessment. That's where the $1,000 per intersection came from.
But as far as the vendor that we're buying our signal equipment from,
So there's many of those, but the current contract that we have is with Unix, which happens to be also our signal maintenance contractor, but that's a separate contract for that APS upgrade. And that's where the $15,000 to $40,000 estimate comes from. That's for actual equipment and labor.
gotcha. You don't think that we would save $30,000 by putting the work out for proposal?
So that's what we did on the current.
To include the actual. Because we could very easily assess whether we have APS system at 30 intersections, right? Whether it's present or not. And then I wonder if these vendors would go out on their dime and assess what we need if they're going to be competing to install it.
Potentially possible, but we just don't have the allocation for actual implementation since it's much higher cost, you know, the 15 to the $40,000 range. So we would need that money allocated first to go out with a contract at a specific number of intersections. So versus that $30,000 initial for assessment that we could probably find the money and do that, then have a clearer picture.
So $1,000 to stop the truck at the intersection, press the button, put the key in the box, unlock, look at the brand name of and the model number of the equipment.
Check the wiring too. That's one of the important things that affects the labor cost for implementation. There's a certain type of wiring that is needed that if it's not there, it needs to be pulled out and a new wire pulled in. So that affects the cost for the labor in the later phase of implementation.
So they're just looking for the presence of the wire.
As well as, you know, the type of equipment. It could be even existing APS that may not be operational that we might be able to fix. So we'll get all that information back. Because some systems are out there that might be a little aged, but still maybe compliant, just not working. You need some maintenance.
I assume basically for all these intersections, we don't have this.
I apologize, what was it?
The vast majority of these 30 intersections, we don't have this.
That would be my assumption because they're the older ones. We've been requiring these APS systems for some time now, but a lot of these signals have been around for a long time.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so you got the direction that you needed there. Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What's that? Oh, yeah, we'll let our students know it's been the required length of time if you want to take a minute to get your papers signed. Students, if you want to go ahead and head out into the lobby, that'd be great. Our next item is regarding the Senior Rental Subsidy Program parameters. If any member of the public wishes to speak on this item, they may indicate so by using the raise their hand feature by pressing *9 or submitting a request to speak card. Speakers will be called upon after the presentation. Our Assistant City Manager, Imelda Huerta, will introduce the item.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Tonight, we will be reporting on Senior Rental Subsidy Program parameters, and it is my pleasure to introduce Jonathan Lung, our Housing and Homeless Services Division Manager, who will be providing the report.
This item solicits the City Council's feedback on a proposed senior rental subsidy program, which is funded with a $500,000 appropriation from fiscal year 2024-25 year-end fund balance. As the City Council considers staff's proposed parameters of the program, it should be noted that the local funding source allows the city's absolute discretion over the program's parameters and does not include any other requirements often considered with federal and state funding sources. At the conclusion of the City Council's discussion, finalizing the proposed program's parameters, staff recommend the City Council direct staff to publish a request for proposals to solicit a program administrator. The program is proposed to provide assistance with rental and housing-related costs for low-income and rent-burdened seniors with a $250, $500, $750, or $1,000 per month shallow subsidy. Awards may include rent and utility payments, including arrears, for up to 24 months directly to landlords and service providers. The objective of these awards is to help households achieve long-term stability after the subsidy ends, with households paying no more than 60% of gross household income towards rent. This can be achieved through a combination of increasing household income, decreasing household expenses, and finding more affordable housing options. Eligibility is proposed to include leaseholders living in a rental unit with a VISTA mailing address. It should be noted that this would include residents of unincorporated VISTA who would engage with the city-funded outreach programs if their housing is lost. Preventing homelessness of unincorporated VISTA residents is a more cost-effective solution than providing emergency services after households fall into homelessness. Eligible applicants must also have a head of household who is a senior or a senior dependent or has a senior dependent, with seniors defined as 55 years or better with the purposes of the program. Eligible households must be spending no more than 60% of household gross income on housing at the time of application, and no more than 80% of household gross income on housing after the subsidy is applied. Eligible households will have income of 80% of area median income or less, total assets of less than $2,000, and not receiving rental assistance from any other programs. Strategies to help awarded households achieve long-term stability include the development of a housing stability plan, which will outline workable solutions to achieve stability and update it as household circumstances change. Increasing household income by ensuring all public benefits household members are eligible for are received or applied for if eligible but not received. Support with improved employment opportunities and considering additional household members. Decreasing household expenses by developing monthly budgets to track spending and reprioritize expenses, applying for utility discounts, ensuring appropriate insurance levels and reducing where appropriate, and accessing lower cost services such as phone plans. Housing navigation by identifying and applying for more affordable units if any are identified. Considering shared housing by joining households together and coordinating with the city-funded shared housing program provided by townspeople. And considering family reunification and assisting with moving in with family or friends. Eligible costs include a monthly rental subsidy of $250, $500, $750, or $1,000 for up to 24 months. Emergency housing costs, including rent and utility arrears. Costs to support increasing household income, including employment supports and public benefits applications. Costs to decrease household expenses, and relocation costs to support transition to a more affordable housing unit, including family or friend reunification. To summarize tonight's recommendations, staff asked the City Council to discuss the proposed program's parameters and direct staff to publish an RFP for a program administrator. Staff will also provide an overview of the program to the Senior Commission for informational and marketing purposes, and a recommended award for an administrator is expected to be presented to City Council during the fourth quarter for the program to begin accepting applications no later than July 1st. This concludes staff's presentation, and we are ready to receive the City Council's feedback and respond to any questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Melendez.
Thank you, Jonathan and Imelda, for your work on this. I really appreciate how you outlined the not just the eligibility, but how the funds could be utilized. And you also expanded beyond month-to-month rental costs to consider what relocation could look like. So I have a couple of notes, but I really think that we're off to a strong start with establishing this program. And just for historical information, the $500,000 funds that are available were approved by our council at the end of last year at our year-end fund balance discussion. And I advocated that we put aside these funds to develop this type of program. So this is the first ever type of program in the city of Vista where we're actually looking not as a rental assistance or homelessness prevention per se, but we're recognizing that seniors in particular on a fixed income are just not able to afford their housing costs. And we want to provide them support, financial support, but based on the program that you're providing to us, we're doing a lot more than that. One of the questions I had was regarding the locations served by this program. And you mentioned also including the unincorporated area. Does the County of San Diego have any similar type program that provides rental assistance to seniors?
They did, but it's exhausted its funding.
Okay. So I would be concerned about including the unincorporated area in the City of Vista's piloting of this program because the County of San Diego does have a similar program and they have exhausted their funds. They might not be motivated to return the program knowing that, you know, a city jurisdiction is going to cover the costs for their constituents. I grew up in the county. I know that there's a lot of seniors who live in the county, and so I absolutely want to find some way for us to be responsive to their needs. But when it comes to administering $500,000, I really do believe it needs to be within the city's jurisdiction only. So that would be my first note. Also, the supportive services, if we could take a moment to look at those, I think that the best supportive services listed here are the case management that allows someone to receive all of those public benefits, right? Are you really plugged in to supportive services? And if you're not, how can we make sure that you're getting food assistance, transportation assistance, and all of these kind of auxiliary services along with your Social Security to make sure your costs are a little bit more manageable. And then also, you know, we're talking about partnering with townspeople and bringing in potentially more household members, maybe doing some shared housing or family reunification, right? And just different types of housing arrangements. I think that that's really important. I do want to just acknowledge that as much as every household should have a budget, when you are poor, a lot of times you will just go without. So you'll make sure that you have that roof over your head, but you're not necessarily, you can't even like begin to plan to buy hygiene products and optimal food options and, you know, let alone things like entertainment and, you know, recreation and these other items that improve our quality of life. So, you know, for folks that are poor and low income, as many of us have experienced, a budget is a tool that is useful to a point, right? And so I really do want to make sure that we start with enhancing people's public benefits, making sure that they have access to all of the funds that are available to them, and potentially reducing their housing costs with relocation or adding new members to the household, a roommate or something like that. And then we can start to look at if, you know, case by case, if we're seeing that someone has, you know, based on the eligibility and the kind of intake process, and we see what their budget actually looks like, and they're maybe not sticking to it, that we can do some case management in that way. But most of the time, when someone is low income, they're just simply going to go without. And I just think it's really important to note that because a budget is not necessarily a resource for that person if they don't have the funds to begin with. If you could go to the next slide. I'm really looking forward to hearing from the Senior Commission on this because as much as, you know, we're looking to approve this item by the council, I'm curious what their thoughts are on the levels of subsidy and how that actually fits the reality, right? At this time, none of us on the council are senior citizens, or, in a position like many of our neighbors are that are struggling with their housing. And so I would like to hear a little bit more about from the Seniors Commission regarding this range. I do also think that the 80% AMI might be a little high, and that we should look to respond to those with just with lower income to start. These funds will go quickly because we know that there's generally a very high need. I think eligibility should be focused on, does the person have low income to start with, not, in lower than 80% AMI, that would be in my note, below 80% AMI for sure. And do they have, what is their income and how is that suitable for their housing option? So up to 24 months, I definitely want to get feedback on that from the Senior Commission. But I think all of the services that we're going to be providing and all of the uses of the funds are totally appropriate. I think it's just the amount of subsidy and the length of subsidy that might need adjustments or really be something that is taken on a case-by-case basis. With that, I'll probably hear from our colleagues here, and I just look forward to being able to approve this item and open it up to the public to actually be able to utilize these funds. Thank you.
Councilmember Contreras.
Councilmember Melendez, I have a question. So are you looking to send this to the Senior Commission and then for it to come back and then for us to approve it?
I'm ready to approve with the modifications that I shared regarding keeping it within the city of Vista and reducing the AMI eligibility. But if the Senior Commission flags something for us, I would ask staff that we take their recommendations seriously and we do return back, because I imagine that we're going to have some sort of final approval on this.
Okay.
Councilmember Fox.
Oh, I'm not done.
Oh, I
Sorry.
apologize.
I'm just thinking because I feel like it would just be maybe better if we provided the modification and then we just gave direction to staff to send it to the Senior Commission.
I'm totally okay with that. I'm not in a huge rush to open this up. We can take our time to develop the program. I don't want it moving anywhere further today without the modifications I'm recommending, but y'all might have other modifications. So if we want to not make a formal approval of anything today until it's heard by the Senior Commission, I'm okay with that.
Okay, well, I like your modifications. One of the things that I would ask, though, is there's probably, a reason that you were thinking about the county. Could you kind of expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. As Councilmember Melendez asked about county programs, currently they don't have one operating to provide this kind of relief. If there are residents of unincorporated Vista that do become homeless, it is still the city's resources that would engage with them for crisis management, which are much more expensive. So the thought is we could provide this assistance to make sure we don't see any households falling into homelessness and unincorporated until the county has a new program, because you'll notice this program would not be eligible for any clients that are currently receiving other rental subsidies. We could also include that if a rental subsidy program does become available from the county and you're an unincorporated Vista resident, you are required to apply for that at the earliest convenience that they could submit that application.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I understand where that makes sense, and I also understand the sensitivity to, keep within our jurisdiction's boundaries. I'm wondering, I'm okay with the modification of just keeping it to the city of Vista for now. This is a newer program for us, But one of the things that I think could be really important is as we are running into folks that are in unincorporated county, if there's a way that we could let the county know and, let the council know that we have X amount of folks that we, are looking for our services. Because if you're letting the council be aware and you're letting the county be aware, I think that potentially if we see these numbers going up, you have two places where potentially there could be accountability and advocacy to the county. And I think it's important, our sphere of influence is unincorporated. And, even in the point in time count, you go into, unincorporated areas. So I would like to keep a pulse on that. But I understand that maybe even for this first time that we're doing it, that we just keep it to the city of Vista. Outside of that, I thank you so much for bringing forward such a well-rounded senior rental subsidy program. I think this is amazing. I really thank Councilmember Melendez for your advocacy of this, and the fact that we, as a council have been very prudent, but also always ready to connect our residents to more resources. And at the end of the day, that's how we had funding left over, right? At the year-end fund balance, $9.5 million and $500,000 going to this program is incredible. So those are all my comments, but again, thank you so much.
Councilmember Fox.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I appreciate all your work on this. This looks like a very well thought out program. It's been set up here a bunch of times already, but, in the past, but seniors are one of the main demographics facing homelessness these days, especially with the fixed incomes and things like that. That's, to prevent the homelessness in the first place is going to be a huge thing that we should be able to do up here. So I think my favorite thing about the program that you added in here, that you included, was the fact that it included the case management and ways to actually prevent the homelessness from happening past the 24 months, because that's one of the problems with, I think, a 24-month program, is that any kind of subsidies like this, they either end and then just push the problem off 2 years, or you have to do something like this, which is, use that 2 years that we have with this program to fix the problem, or at least as much as possible fix the program. So thank you very much for that piece of this. I think that makes it, I think that's going to make it a lot more effective in the long run. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. The incorporated piece, I think the idea of postponing that for now until we get a feel on the popularity of the program, the needs of it, I think is a reasonable idea. If the funds aren't being all of it's not being utilized, expanding it into unincorporated, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But I think it is a good point that we should probably make sure that we have enough to fund people in the incorporated part, that if people are paying into the fee, the taxes into this first before we, go outside of our jurisdiction. So I think that's, again, I like the idea and I would be supportive of it, but it might not, for a pilot program, be a bad idea to start small. So when it comes to senior commission, I'm open to either. So if we want to, I think that it's a great idea to have them look at it. If we want to wait for their opinions on it before it comes back, and then, go straight on to consent or something like that, if they agree with it, and if there's any changes, we could do another discussion on that. I'm fine with that. But if we want to work towards the program now and change it when we're actually voting to do the proposal, because if we're putting out an RFP, eventually there will be a proposal that we have to approve. So I'm assuming, though, if we do make any radical changes to it that aren't just that are maybe financial, that would actually maybe negatively affect the RFP. So do you have any thoughts on that, on if there's anything that you could see coming out of the senior commission that would potentially, will we be able to wait on putting off the RFP until we hear back from the senior commission? What are your thoughts on the timeline?
I would imagine that the feedback from the senior commission would likely advocate for the widest breadth of eligibility. So perhaps the city council would consider maximum limits for each of the eligibility, and if the senior commission had any recommendations that exceeded those, it would return to council, and if not, we would go ahead with the RFP.
Okay, yeah, I'd be okay with that. And when it comes to the 80% AMI, again, I think it's like Councilmember Melendez says, is focusing on the people with the greatest need first, whether that's lowering the limit for the program or just making sure that people with a lower AMI get priority first, or something. I'm open to that as well. So, if this is this something that would be done like through a scoring process, if there's like a certain number of applications, or is it pretty much just like if we wouldn't be able to really, if as long as someone qualifies, they get the funds?
So with VHAB C2, for example, we had appropriated 2 separate funding pools, one for up to 80% and one up to 65, I should say between 65 and 80 and then up to 65. We could do something similar though with VHAB C2. All of our applications so far have been below 30%. So I think that issue kind of resolved itself. Another example I might cite was during COVID with COVID relief funds with just an absolute saturation of applications all at once. They did do different application windows. Within each window, they would prioritize based on AMI. I'm not sure what the level of application we would receive with this program, so perhaps the city council might consider lowering the AMI eligibility, and if we see a need for a higher eligibility, we could return and propose an amendment. Or vice versa, we propose a lower AMI, which I suppose we wouldn't necessarily need to if the limit is higher.
Right. And if we did something like splitting it to 2 pools, obviously we would, well, it's a certain amount that would be guaranteed required to go under that, into that first category, but anyone in the first category would also qualify for the second category as well, so that would be kind of reserving some. I mean, I don't mind the idea of mirroring that other program. You said what was the program that
It was during COVID, basically emergency rental assistance.
yeah, what was you said there was a name of the program, the one that's being currently
VHAB C2?
That one.
Yeah.
Of mirroring a lot of that program. If we see that it's being successful, mirroring a lot of that, how we're getting that done would be, I think, not a bad place to start too. So that's my thoughts on it, but yeah, I'll leave it up to council.
So here are my thoughts on this. I have a lot of significant concerns about this program. About 31% of our population is over the age of 55. At 100,000 residents, that's about 31,000 people. I wager the vast majority of them make less than $95,600, which is the 85% of AMI for a single member household. I don't think we should be providing subsidies for people making $95,600. I think that's insanity. If we were to subsidize just the seniors in our community who are at or below the poverty level, which is about 4,800 individuals, if we were to give them all the minimum $250 subsidy, it would be an expense to the city of $28.5 million a year. If we were to subsidize all of the seniors who qualify at 80% of AMI, it'd be $186 million a year. If we were to exhaust just the $500,000 and not spend money on any administration or any other component of this plan, we would only help about 83 individuals. So we've got an extremely small number of people that we could help with this amount of money. Or we could take this money and we could put it in our housing fund and we could identify a senior housing project like the National Core Project, and we could use this money to attract a subsidized senior housing community to our city. So I want to very, very seriously suggest that we consider doing that. The problem is you risk the creation of dependency on this program. I mean, seniors, when we say the word senior, a lot of us, and we think about seniors in need, a lot of us would tend to think about elderly individuals. And particularly, we would tend to think about those who are retired. If you're retired, you're probably on a fixed income. And so if you do have a structural deficit in your spending, a 2-year solution isn't going to be long enough. And we clearly just cannot afford, as a city, to provide subsidy to even nearly the number of people who you could by reasonable means defined as being truly in need. The cost is just too great. We can't guarantee that in future years we're going to be able to continue this program, and so we may create a need or a dependency on the program that we won't be able to satisfy in future years. I really think we could do a lot of long-term good for a large number of seniors throughout their lives if we were to, this is the amount of money that we invested in the National Core Senior Village at, what do we call it, Senior Village? Yeah, the Senior Village on Santa Fe. And I think that we should be looking, I've always talked about my grandmother who lived the last decade of her life in subsidized housing, and it was essential to her quality of life and her dignity in her final years. And so, I think by leveraging this money, or I should say using this money to leverage federal dollars and other funds that are available, I think we could really multiply the good that we could do for seniors. I support the stabilization strategies to include the stability plan, helping seniors decrease their expenses by creating a budget. I think budgets are incredibly important, especially if you're on a fixed income. Landlord advocacy, identifying, housing navigation services, shared housing, I've been a huge advocate for. Family reunification, I think, is essential. So I'm in favor of funding, to some degree, all of those stabilization strategies that I specifically mentioned. But I really think we need to consider that even at just the $250 level, we only have enough money to help 83 people. And while it's a worthy goal to help 83 people, we can't even guarantee that we would be able to fund it into year 2. So it's a wonderful idea to be able to help seniors in need. If we were just going to move forward as designed tonight, I would say, first off, the 55 years of age should be increased at minimum to 70. And the AMI requirement should be a maximum of 30% of AMI, so that we're really helping the absolute most vulnerable seniors. But for all the reasons I've mentioned, I have such severe reservations about this and our inability to provide these benefits to anything more than a vast decimal point with many zeros to the right of the decimal before we get to the number. 83 out of 5,000, in the living below the poverty line. That just not enough people, and so then you kind of create a lottery system where only a very small number of people would be able to benefit. And so I have those concerns, and for that reason, I'm not able to support the program going forward. Councilmember Melendez.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate those concerns, which is why I have advocated that we narrow eligibility to a reasonable extent. I didn't identify a specific number regarding AMI. I would say 30% AMI is appropriate, right? Folks that are making, that are basically only existing off of their very limited Social Security or disability should be prioritized. If you have the ability to work, that is an incredible gift and a burden as you age. One of the things I just looked up now on some census data is regarding disability status for people as they age. And 24% of people aged 65 to 74 are disabled. And for those who are over 75 years old, it's 46%. So I absolutely support responding to people who are in the greatest level of poverty. I absolutely support responding to those who have the highest burden of disability. And that comes with age. I'm not sure, City Attorney, is there what are our parameters for being responsive to, disability doesn't just come with age, right? You can be 55 on a fixed income with disability and Social Security and not be able to afford your housing, and you are the most vulnerable person on the street. So how are we able to use this program to be responsive to people with disabilities in a way that is, has a legal framework to it?
So I think as Jonathan Lung has indicated in the beginning of the presentation, we are free to create whatever parameters we have on this, as long as we're not discriminating against any protected class. I think the council would be fine setting up whatever parameters it wanted to.
Okay, I mean, we could add in a criteria. It could be 30% AMI, over 70, also has a disability, and absolutely lives in the city of Vista. And Mayor, the reason why I wouldn't advocate to take these funds and give it to our housing fund is based on an argument that you've used before, which is that when we develop affordable housing, that housing is filled through the system that is accessible through the entire county. We might not actually be serving longtime Vista residents by building affordable housing for seniors, although we need that service and we need that option just as much as we need this option. So I would like to have a variety of programs, and this gives us the opportunity to serve people who live in Vista immediately. And that also means that we can allow people to stay in Vista and prevent homelessness in Vista. So if anyone has any thoughts on really narrowing the criteria to be considerate to those who are most vulnerable, I think a program that is marketed as rental subsidy for disabled seniors is completely appropriate and responsive to those with the highest need, because we know that when you have those conditions of age and disability, that's where it becomes even more difficult for you to work. The other thing for us to consider is if the purpose is to get folks back up on their feet, we might not be thinking about the same program. This program, I don't believe, is something that should be there to get folks back up on their feet. That's the type of program that should exist for younger people with the capacity to gain more income. When you're a senior with disabilities, we should not be, implementing a program that's demanding for them to get back into the workforce. I think that is actually cruel. I would like to see us advocate for more long-term services for those folks. And ultimately, I do agree with you to some extent, Mayor, that permanent supportive housing is that solution for many people. But there are solutions offered in the case management and stabilization strategies that help people stabilize even without permanent supportive housing. So I think that there are ways that we can implement this program that respond to the highest need. We're realistic about the client's ability to, get back up on their feet and actually, gain more income to respond to their housing needs. And, also is going to serve people really focused in Vista. So that would be some of my feedback, and I hope you would be able to support it. And I think we can come together and even ask our senior commission, how do we narrow eligibility? What are the criteria that we can lock in? And, it might be a very narrow pool of folks, but senior commission, let us know, your friends and neighbors in these positions, what are the criteria that put you in the most vulnerable position, and how can we serve those people first?
Councilmember Contreras.
A question on the permanent supportive housing. That process takes about how long to complete from start to finish?
Construction or placement?
All the whole thing.
The whole thing, okay, so.
Because it's got to come to council, we got to identify land, then we got to have RFP.
At minimum, a very, very fast-track development from the date of approval by city council to pursue a project. I'll also add the variable that it would depend on whether the city owns the property or not. But I would say a good average to expect a permanent supportive housing development to be fully constructed and accepting applications for tenants, probably 4 to 5 years.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, Mayor. The need is now. Our, unfortunately, the fastest growing demographic experiencing homelessness is seniors. We have an aging population. I don't think we can get around the fact that the affordability crisis is hitting our seniors, and it's devastating. I think we need to move forward with this and see how it goes as a pilot. But I want our seniors to know that with the funds that we had left over from our budget last year, that we want to invest in their stability. And that's what we're doing here. I cannot wait, 5+ years. Folks are suffering now. There's more and more folks that I've seen that look like they fit the senior demographic that are living in their cars. We don't want it to get to that point. We want to be able to help folks while they're housed. And I think that's what our residents deserve. If we have the opportunity to do this now, I think we do it now. For any kind of services like this in the future, if we do not have funding, these are additional services that we will have to look at pulling back. But until that time happens and we have the ability to bring stability to our seniors during an incredible affordability crisis that's meeting fixed incomes with higher costs, I just know that this is the right thing to do. So I'm looking forward to moving this along. And I do think that our Senior Commission should take a look at this program as well and provide any additional commentary, suggestions, recommendations. That's all for me at this time.
By the way, just as we're all up here kind of trying to understand and digest the numbers, the average benefit for a Social Security recipient in America is $2,071. That's $24,852 a year. That's 20% of the AMI. So if you're making the average, you're only at 20% of AMI. So I think we have to go lower than 30%. I think we may even have to go lower than 20% because we're trying to get. I just think what I would ask the Senior Commission is and the staff, we need to do a little bit more looking at what really defines the parameters of those who are in the greatest need, because there are a lot of seniors who are existing on a very small amount of money, and it might be way more than we think. And so in order to really target this, and I think it might have to be something more than just a subsidy for people who, it's if they've had some sort of a qualifying event that's changed something. I mean, but I just, to me, the danger of creating cash payments for a very large portion of the public, it's really beyond the scope of city government, and the costs have the potential to grow exponentially beyond our control, or for us to just run out of money and not be able to help very many people, and then some people get it, some don't. So we just need a lot more information here, and need to get a lot closer to, look, everybody wants to see every senior citizen, especially elderly people or disabled, have dignity in their retirement. That's something I talk about all the time. That's important to me. But when you get down to the actual mathematics of this, and you start to realize how few people that you could help with $500,000 just given out in $6,000 a piece over 24 months of $250, and then you think about and I don't know if I agree with 5 years, because I think the Urban Core thing, I mean, from the day that we found out about it, couldn't have been more than 3 years from the time they opened it. Now, they were already maybe a 12 or
funded already,
18
yeah.
months into, into But the other problem is, senior poverty is not going anywhere. So, as much as it is always an emergency to see anybody in need, we shouldn't treat problems that will continue to exist 50 years from now as a crisis in terms of the way we approach it with money, because the way you approach a crisis with money tends to be with disregard for the most efficient and effective use of dollars. Whereas when we recognize that poverty and senior poverty have been with us for generations, going back to why, Americans, created the Social Security program 100 years ago, nearly 100 years ago, because senior poverty was a problem then, it's a problem now. And, my grandmother Inez got about $400 a month. And, I remember thinking that she had gotten a particularly raw deal to only get $400 a month until I do the inflationary math on her $400 from 20 plus years ago was certainly the equivalent of $2,000 today. The $2,000 you get today is about the same. I don't know how you afford anything on that, really. It's not much. We really need to be looking at how do we change the cycle of poverty for our lowest income residents. And, we just, and Mads left, our chairman of our, is he the chairman? I think he's the chairman of our youth commission. No, he's not the chair. Well, he's one of the good voices in our youth commission. But we asked all of our youth commissioners, we had about 20 of them together, maybe it was 16 of them, and they're not being taught how to budget in school. They're not being taught how to balance a checkbook or what it means to buy something on a credit card. We're not giving tools to young people to interrupt the cycle of poverty and to give them the knowledge tools to really change the trajectory of their life. What could we do to make a meaningful difference in the lives of, 1,000 young people, to give them knowledge that would change their life and the trajectory of their life and their ability to retire with dignity, and to know that owning a home is something that, the only possible way I could ever afford to live on $2,000 is if I already had my house paid for. The idea is something we can all get behind, and we all would take our own money and help somebody that we saw in need until we ran out of it. But I just have deep concern about we're dipping into a very shallow well with an extremely large bucket of need, and there's just so little water in the bottom of that well to fill this enormous bucket, that when we draw it back up and we go to disperse it to the many people that would qualify and that would truly be a need in the eyes of the community, it's just going to be so much less than we would hope for. And if we then tried to find the dollars to fill that bucket, we certainly wouldn't be able to with the dollars that we have. So I just have a lot of concerns, and I think we need to carefully address those concerns as we move forward. Let's see, I think we're back to Councilmember Contreras, is that right? I'm sorry, Councilmember Fox was next.
Yes, thank you. I think I'm leaning towards the idea of having our senior commission take a look at it, maybe before it comes back to us, to go over a lot of that. Because I think there was a lot of good points being brought up about making sure that if we only have a very limited pool of funds, that, if it is only, between 20 and 80 people that we're able to help with this, it needs to be the 20 or 80 people that without this would be on our streets using our services and, potential and going into homelessness. And so figuring out how to select for that group and be as efficient as we can does sound like a good idea to me. So I think that's, rather than do it fast, doing it right might be the right decision here as well. So I think I'm going to lean towards that one as well now. That's all I want to say. Thanks.
Okay, do we have enough direction on this?
Actually, I'd like to
Councilmember Good.
clarify, if I could, Mayor. So what I'm hearing is keeping it within the city boundary, that's pretty clear. But we would be presenting to the Senior Commission, and what we're hearing, at least what I'm hearing, the last conversation that Councilmember Melendez mentioned was 30% AMI above age 70 and with a disability. Was that the parameters that you'd like us to present to the Senior Commission, get their feedback and come back? Or would you like us to present what the staff recommendation was, ask the Senior Commission to narrow it as much as they could, and then come back with that recommendation?
Councilmember Contreras?
Yeah, I was going to ask for clarification as to what we were doing as well, just because I was uncertain. There was a lot of looking at the different points and movement in that. I'm 100% in favor, I will tell you, of having our Senior Commission review this in its entirety. I'm okay with that.
I have one more thought, if the city council finds it useful. HCD, as of about 2-3 years ago, adopted a new income level they call acutely low, which is 15% AMI. It's specific to California. Perhaps city council would like to consider that, to consider extreme need.
I think that makes sense, given the fact that the average Social Security benefit puts you at 20% of AMI. Councilmember Melendez.
Yes, so I would support that, Jonathan. Thank you for that comment. I think we share these recommendations that the council has built tonight of a very, very narrow criteria, and give them a little bit of background. Say that staff brought forward a broader criteria, and the council has the intention of serving those with the highest need, and so we have asked to narrow it significantly, and then get their feedback on that. They might reality check us and let us know what the real impact is for folks making 60% AMI. And so, as long as they're empowered in that conversation to share that feedback with us, I would welcome that discussion. Again, these are not hard and fast decisions. It will come back before us, but I say we just present the Senior Commission with narrow criteria, and we hope to hear their support on that.
Okay, you have enough direction? Okay, seeing no other requests to speak on that, we'll move forward. I don't think I closed the opportunity for oral communications. Do we have anybody else that wants to be heard? No. Okay, we'll close the opportunity for oral communications. That'll bring us to the conclusion of our meeting and comments from staff. Any comments from the city clerk's office this evening? From our city attorney, city manager?
Just one, I want to promote the 2026 Vista Leadership Academy. It's a free 8-week program that offers behind-the-scenes look at how the city of Vista operates, with participants meeting on Wednesday evenings from 5 to 7 p.m., plus one daytime bus tour to learn how decisions are made, how services are delivered, and how we plan for the future, while meeting city leaders and touring key facilities. The session runs from March 11th through May 6th, with graduation on May 12th, and space is limited to 20 participants. If you're 18 or older and live in or own a business in Vista, I encourage you to apply by March 1st and take advantage of this unique opportunity. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Fox.
Thank you very much. Next week, I have a joint dispatch meeting, so I'll be able to report back on that. I think we're in labor negotiations still on that one for dispatchers. So that's moving on, I think, pretty well. Other than that, I love my wife very much. It's Taco Tuesday, and I hope everyone has a wonderful night.
Councilmember Melendez.
Thank you all. I just wanted to report, since my last Clean Energy Alliance meeting, we have officially approved some cost-saving measures. We wanted to respond to the rising utility costs, and so now we have a program that ensures that CEA programs will always have an option that is in parity with SDG&E. Not only does that continue to make us competitive against SDG&E, but it ensures that
CEA customers aren't forced to pay a premium for renewable energy options. And this is something that we're really proud of. We want to bring everybody in to renewable energy options, but we know that utility costs just continue to go up. So we do have a rate relief program now for CEA customers, which includes City of Vista and pretty much all of our constituencies. So thank you to my board for working on that with me. We were able to do so in a way that ensured that we would still be able to meet our obligations and some of our financial goals to eventually have greater cost savings in the future, while also trying to be responsive to some of the current cost of living challenges people are dealing with. So feel free to visit the CEA website or contact customer service of Clean Energy Alliance for more information about that program.
Councilmember Contreras.
As always, tomorrow is Wednesday, so it's a trash pickup. So Guerreras en Acción por un Vista Limpio will be doing their weekly trash pickup. You can contact Jovita Serafin, the founder and captain. If for any reason you have a hard time reaching them, just let me know and I'll connect you. Other than that, I hope everybody has a good rest of your night. Thanks.
Okay, we want to invite our residents, business owners, and community stakeholders to join us for General Plan Workshop Series number 3, taking place March 2nd through the 5th, 6:30 to 8 p.m. in an open house format at locations across all 4 council districts, including Spanish language workshops on March 3rd. Our draft General Plan Update 2050 reflects years of outreach to the community and input and will serve as Vista's long-term blueprint for growth, guiding land use decisions, policies, and priorities for decades to come. At these workshops, you'll be able to review key updates, see how your feedback has shaped the draft document and program environmental impact report, learn about the next steps in adoption process, and share additional comments. Your voice does matter to us, and we encourage everyone to attend and help shape the future of our city. For more information, visit vista.gov/news. Thank you, as always, to my beautiful wife for allowing me to serve and take time away from being home with her. Have a good night, everyone.